It's episode 78 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Jon Trevor.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hi. Good, really good. Not very awake, but otherwise good. I'm wired from lack of sleep.
Right, yes. And why? Do you have such a lack of sleep, Jon?
Because it's the middle of the Birmingham Improv Festival, which we've been building up to for several months, and I'm too excited to go to sleep at night, and then and then too much is rushing through my brain in the middle of the night to get any proper sleep.
So maybe you could talk about a little bit about how the whole festival started, what the kind of inspiration was, and maybe if there are any lessons learned, if somebody else wants to try and do a similar thing, what advice?
Yeah, don't do it if you want any kind of life. I'm not sure how it got started. I think it was one of those pub conversations. So we're in our second year. Last year was our first year, and it took about a year to make that happen. So about 2 years ago, I must have been sitting in a pub, and I must have said, hey, we should have a festival. And nobody else picked up the stick and ran with it. So I did. And after a year, we had our first festival, which was last October. And it was 2 days in the Blue Orange Theatre, our lovely... it's not our theatre, it's a theatre that's very friendly to us. And we did 10 shows and 8 workshops in 2 days.
Wow, that's too many.
Well, that was only the first year. And that was really successful. And everyone went, great, when are you doing the next one? And I went, oh... okay, we'll do it again. And so our catchphrase last year, our strapline, which was our agreed target, was to put Birmingham on the improv map and to put improv on the Birmingham map to make people aware that there is improv in Birmingham. And our very difficult second album, which is this year, we had to do something else. So the catchphrase was bigger, better, brummier. So it's bigger because it's twice as big. It lasts a whole week instead of 2 days. There's 21 shows instead of 10, involving 24 acts and solo artists. And it's brummier because it was more opportunity for local groups to get involved. Yes. Last year it was pretty much all invited acts from outside.
Yes.
So that's where we are.
Yeah, and I've loved the opportunity to see some acts from the Midlands that I don't normally get to see. Obviously, I've loved seeing the acts from London, but they're more familiar to me. But seeing these new acts is so surprising because I don't know what their format is, I don't know what their signature moves are, I don't even know what the Birmingham improv scene is like, so it's very exciting for me to be here. So
it's burgeoning. There was no scene about 8 years ago when this all started. So over the last 8 years we've gone from pretty much a zero start. There's now 7, it depends how you count them, 7, 8, 9 local groups, because inevitably there's, look at it as cross-fertilisation or incest, either way you want.
I prefer cross-fertilisation. That seems somehow healthier.
But you know what I mean, different people are in more than one group, doing different formats, to the point where we can now involve 8 or 9 groups locally, as well as the acts that we invite in. Yeah. I keep saying we, it's really mostly me.
So what have been some of the challenges maybe of organising? Do you have experience of organising a festivals?
No. And I just gave myself the title of festival director. And last year it was done with no formal structure at all. Yeah. And really my own financial risk. Fortunately it broke even. I've now set up a Birmingham Improv CIC, community interest company. So it's now done under the auspices of a community interest company, which means I could apply for Arts Council money.
Which you got.
And we got a small amount of money under the Grant for the Arts, which has really helped. And it meant I could do what I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think is unique certainly in British improv festivals and others as far as I know, which is to offer every group a guarantee.
Right.
Everyone gets paid. So part of my pitch to the Arts Council was I want to professionalise improv. And so even the local student groups are on a guarantee.
Wow, that's great. What were the sort of the challenges of putting on a festival?
The logistics of trying to put together a timetable that works. Obviously the money, that's always a challenge. getting people to return contracts, because most improv groups aren't a formal structure.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of mates, mostly. There's a couple of exceptions. And getting them to respond in a timely fashion, sign a contract, commit to a date, send you PR information, all of which you need to make a festival happen.
Yeah.
So just trying to herd the cats is always hard work.
Yes, and improvisers by their very nature tend to be like people that like to do things spontaneously, and that organisation is always the tricky but necessary side of being in an improv group.
Yes, and so I've become, fortunately I've got a reasonable relationship with spreadsheets. We do get on, we're on good speaking terms, so that's helped.
Yes. So it's been organised, and yeah.
Yeah, you've got to be organised, because in the end, there's a lot of preparatory work, but in the end the week has to run like clockwork.
Yes.
And each act has to start and finish on time,
yes.
and the theatre's got to be ready, and there's got to be volunteers in place, and there's got to be T-shirts and signs and banners and all that ridiculous small stuff that nobody else thinks about thinking about that
yes.
needs to be done.
Yes, because unless you've ever been involved in organising a festival or an event of this size, you sort of think that happens sort of magically.
Yeah.
And it's only when you've sort of been behind the scenes that you realise, oh, somebody actually had to do that.
I'm not complaining. It's really satisfying to make something happen out of it. It's a bit like magic, making something happen out of nothing, and then watching it unfold.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed all the events I've been to and attended so far. So thank you.
Pleasure, pleasure.
So you say that improv has been around in Birmingham sort of 9 years?
Well, I'll get into trouble if I tell the story the full way. My experience of it is about 9 years ago, I was looking to join an improv group. I'd never done any. I'd had a background in the theatre. I'd given up the theatre. A few years had passed. I was looking for some improv. There was one group that was doing some stuff in a pub. So I have to mention, I'm not going to mention names, but there was one group. It was sort of haphazard. There wasn't massive audiences. It wasn't really top quality work. I don't want to offend anybody or upset anybody. But other than that, there was nothing happening in terms of workshops you could go to, certainly. I looked around, I Googled, there was nothing going on. So I did this ridiculous thing. I'd never done any improv. I'd never seen any improv apart from Whose Line Is It Anyway, about when I was a child or when I was, many years earlier. So I printed some flyers and I started teaching.
Wow.
I'd read Keith Johnson, so I reckon I knew what I was doing.
Well, I mean, it's a good place to start.
Yeah, but that was it. Having never done any and never taught any, I just started teaching improv at a drop-in 8 years ago.
But you had a theatre background, you say?
I'd been a theatre director. I'd used some improv in rehearsal, but not as a performance. And you know, and I know, that improv for rehearsal and improv for performance are two very different things.
Yes. One's
about looking inwards to develop a character, and the other one's about working together with other people to make a finished product. They're very different.
Yes.
And so I don't think my teaching was particularly brilliant to begin with, but since then I've done a lot more and gone to a lot of places and taken in lots of other people's workshops, and that drop-in is still running 8.5 years later.
Wow.
Lots of people have been through it and come out of it and either still come or have gone off and formed their own groups, which is why we now have 8 or 9 groups in Birmingham. It's mostly people that have met each other through Box of Frogs.
Yeah. So it's every week?
Every Tuesday in Moseley.
Where does it take place?
St Columba's Church Hall, opposite the Prince of Wales pub, in Moseley, Tuesday 7:30 to 9:30, £5. And we tend to take a few weeks off at Christmas.
Right, yes, fair enough. So is it exclusively you that teaches it?
It was for about the first 6 or 7 years.
Right.
Occasionally getting cover when I was ill or going on holiday. And then there was a little experimental period where I got bored having to turn up with something to do every Tuesday, and recruited some people who'd been coming quite a long time, and we formed a little teaching committee. And the idea being that it would be a rota, other people would teach, I would still come, but I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have to come, but I would come if I wanted to. And that lasted about 6 months as an experiment. And what happened was I still found myself having to be responsible for the rota. And if nobody volunteered to turn up on a particular night, I would have to go in and do it anyway. Right. So I found myself still with the stress of having to make sure it happened. Yeah. And in the end, I went, this is so stressful, I might as well just actually do it. So we had a meeting, and I went, guys, you're all fired. I'm taking it all back. It's me again. Everyone was really good about it. Everyone still comes. We're still all friends. But I just went, it's not working for me. It's more stressful. So you're all fired, and I'm teaching again. And I love teaching. I love running the workshops. I love working with beginners and seeing their lights come on. Yes. And I love basically, I turn up and people make me laugh. I get entertained and people pay me for it. Yeah. So I love that.
Brilliant. And so how do you decide what you're going to cover and what sort of things do you cover?
There's no pattern. Whatever I'm inspired to do. If I've been to someone's workshop recently, I will steal and plough all their material.
And that's a lovely thing.
Yes.
Because sometimes I can't always afford to do, the big names that come over, but I can probably manage to do a workshop by somebody that did there, and it's not the same. It's a filtered through, but still you get most of the goodness.
Absolutely. So I recycle other people's work ruthlessly. Or something I just haven't done it for a while and go, oh, let's do that. Because new people will have come and old people have gone. Because we do a short form show once a month, so the rule is the show's on a Monday, the Tuesday before we'll look at short form games as a sort of preparation for the show. Yeah. And the rule is if you want to be in the show, you have to come the Tuesday before.
That seems very reasonable.
Mostly. And the thing with the show is, the show started because after about a year of just doing workshopping, people went, well, we want to perform. Yeah. And we tried various ways, and now we perform at the Blue Orange. And the rule is anyone who comes to the drop-in can have a go when they feel they're ready. And so I don't quality control. People self-select.
Right, yes.
And on the whole, people are pretty good at knowing when they're ready to perform in front of an audience. Cool. And then we don't charge the audience. Right. So there's no quality control. And our motto is laugh all your money back because nobody has to pay anything. So that works well. And actually what's happened is the standard has gone up and up and up, which is really nice.
I mean, if you were, it's a slightly unfair question, but if you were to be the arbiter, how do you tell when you're ready? How would you tell, or how would somebody themselves know when they're ready?
I didn't come up with this, but one of my workshop people said to somebody else who wasn't sure if they're ready, how comfortable do you feel getting up and doing stuff in when we do, so we do warm-uppy games, and then we'll do scene work. How confident are you stepping up to do the scene work? If you're still reluctant and resistant, then you're probably not ready to stand in front of an audience. Yeah. If you're enthusiastic about jumping up and doing a bit that you haven't done before, then you're probably getting close to ready to do it in front of an audience.
Well, that's a nice
and I thought that was a useful guide.
Because you can still be nervous and be afraid, but if you're enthusiastic and the want is there, then that's kind of the key.
Yeah, fear is a good thing. The nerves is a good thing as long as it's not too great. But there's got to be the enthusiasm and the willingness to plunge.
Yes. So is it exclusively short form that you do in the drop-in?
No. We'll look at scene work. We'll look at... sometimes it gets quite dark and quite serious. Sometimes it gets really technical. Yeah. Which is a shame if there's new people turn up and their first experience is some quite technical thing about... how you deal with an offer, or how you deal with a certain audience suggestion, or what do you do with a scene partner who's done, or how do you move a bit of story along, what's a good move to make. That can be quite daunting for new people. Yeah. But we try and support them and help them and make them feel that they can still participate.
Yeah, I understand you say it's daunting, but sometimes it can be really exciting because you might not really quite know how that technique works, but sort of finding out about that technique can be a really there's a whole new world that I've not encountered before, and that technique may not fall into place until you've done some other more basic stuff, but it's still a really exciting thing to do.
And I find for me, I'm constantly learning from running the drop-in. So we'll do something in a scene and it won't work, and I'll go, I have no idea why this isn't. And then someone will do something and I'll go, we've just discovered a thing here. And I'm going to this is now a rule. This is going in my book of things to tell people
Yes.
because we've discovered a thing that makes a scene work,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's really useful.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but they said that the best way to learn something is to teach it to other people.
Definitely.
Are you writing a book of things to tell people? You should do that.
I should do. I've been thinking about it. There are so many books already. Katie Shook's just written a book.
It's very good.
I haven't seen it yet. I know it's going to be brilliant because Katie's brilliant. What hope have I got of writing a book that's going to cover anything that what's she left out? So I don't know. I would like to, but I don't know what it would be about. I would love to write a book.
I'm sure whatever you wrote would be a valuable addition.
You're just saying that because you don't know. You've never seen me teach.
That is very true. So when you were, for forming what became Box of Frogs, what was it about improv that drew you to it?
I don't know. I didn't really know what it was. I've learned what it is, and of course, because we were all outsiders once, and what it looks like, as you know, isn't what it is. Because I always think about the ice skating thing. What it looks like is people effortlessly gliding around and having a nice time, and what's going on beneath the surface is incredibly technical, hard work detail. And improv looks like very clever, witty people with a head full of good jokes coming out with them in a brilliant way. And of course, it's nothing to do with what improv is about, as you know, and as what I know.
Yeah.
It's about a whole set of other skills. So I don't know. I'd seen Whose Line. I didn't want to do plays because I'd spent 20 years doing plays. I wanted to do something that was fun and theatrical. And I'd read Keith and thought, that sounds interesting. I would like to try some of this stuff. So I guess that was it. It was just that combination.
Cool. And when you have the shows, the free shows, what's the kind of the format? How's that run?
It's short form games.
Yeah.
It's short form games, some of which nobody else does because we've invented them.
Oh, God, share one game that you've invented.
Okay, so I've invented a game. We call it online dating. The whole world can have it now. It's a bit like so we get the audience to write down on cards appropriate or inappropriate things somebody might put on their online profile.
Lovely.
Okay, which then go into a hat, and then we set up. It's a restaurant. Two people who have been chatting online are going to meet for the first time, and we also have a waiter that sort of as a third party just to sort of break up what's going on. And the lines in the hat are what they like about this. Is quite complex. So if I'm talking to you, I will say the thing that made me want to come on this date that you put on your profile is, and then I'll pull it out of the hat. The fact that you said you only have dead pets in your house.
Yes.
And now your job is to justify the thing I've given you, and my job is to justify why I thought it was wonderful and that you're the person I want to date.
Yes.
So unlike lines from a hat where
Yes.
I'm having to pull out lines for me to say, these are the things about you that I like.
Yes. It's much more interesting to have the suggestion and then endow your scene partner with that idea. That's much more elegant and interesting.
Yes.
I can't even quite explain why, but I just get this feeling like, yes, I'd want to see it that way around.
And what we've discovered is the interesting thing isn't pulling out hundreds of things from the hat. The interesting thing is spending time on the first endowment. We usually give 2 endowments each.
Yeah.
And then on the second endowment, which is going to be something completely different, I have no teeth. Somehow finding a way to link that to the first endowment so that it becomes a complete package.
Yes, that's a beautiful thing.
So it's a real challenge. So it's quite a slow thing. It's not lots and lots of funny lines. It's working to justify in 2 endowments and link them together.
Yeah. No, that sounds really beautiful. And I love getting written suggestions because I just think that gives a different section of the audience who don't feel confident shouting things out. It gives them a chance to contribute. And they can also write more complex ideas that are hard to just shout out and stuff like that. So anything with a written suggestion I'm a big fan of. But that sounds a really fun game.
Yeah, I can't remember how I came up with it, but it's fun, yes. I just want to say I don't only do short. I do perform as well as teach.
That was going to be my next question.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because I'm beginning to sound like I'm a teacher, and I'm not, and I'm in great awe of really good teachers for whom I have huge respect. And I'm a teacher by default because nobody else was. And the thing is, I'm more confident about my teaching now than I am about my performing.
That's interesting.
Because I've done more of one than the other.
Right.
So I'm always, especially that thing, and I'm sure other teachers will feel this, when your students are watching you.
Yes.
And it's like, well, he's told us all this stuff you're supposed to do, and now look at him. He's doing none of it. He's just up there fumbling around.
Yes, what is, would you say, your key signature move is? What do you pull out of the bag and everyone goes, it's classic Trevor, saved the day again with his killer move?
I don't know if it's a killer move. If in doubt, walk down stage and pick something up.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, I love that. You reach out and then you discover what it is. Oh, no, I love that. That's beautiful. Well,
I do like object work, and it slows the scene down. It gives you time to think. It's a self-endowment.
Yeah.
So I will reach out and make a cup of tea, open a book, stroke a cat.
Yes.
So yeah, that's. And I don't know if it's so much a signature move as a sort of parachute.
Yeah. No,
So
I love that.
That's definitely one. Signature moves. Saying what's happening.
Yeah.
If in doubt, you look sad. I've hurt you, haven't I? You're not speaking to me. What's up?
Yeah.
So if in doubt, I will just reach for what's really there at that moment.
Oh, that's a really lovely thing to do. I mean, what sort of improviser are you? That's a big open question. I realise that, but
I don't know. And because I teach, I think I struggle to get feedback very often.
Right.
I'm very happy to give lots of other people feedback. I don't get a huge amount. I crave people telling me. I think I'm energetic. I'm a little pushy. I tend to want to rescue the scenes, and that's a teacher's instinct.
Right. Yes.
Sort of to rescue what's going on. I can bulldoze if I'm not careful. I don't like to, but I can do. Here's the idea. I will initiate premise-based scenes.
So you'll have an idea first?
Not always. I'm happy to come out with nothing.
Yeah.
But if the stage is empty and nobody's making a move,
yes.
I will come out and do something premise-based because I think it's sort of polite.
Yes. Yes, no, definitely. Yes, if the stage is empty, then it's your turn to go on.
Yeah.
So who are you performing with at the moment?
So, I front the month, I MC the short form shows and try and play a couple of games at least every time.
Yeah.
Very occasionally I hand over the MCing to somebody else because I start to feel like a fraud. I'm teaching these short form games and not doing them.
Right, yes.
So I will hand over and participate. I'm in a group called the Knee Jerks
yes.
with Kate, who you
yes.
spoke to,
yes.
and several others. Did she describe what we do?
Yes, but I'd like to hear your interpretation of it.
We're not quite sure. So we're not long form because we found trying to make narrative happen was too much of a trap.
Oh, it's interesting. You've put long form and narrative. You conflated the two terms. That's interesting.
So I think, we tried narrative stuff and it wasn't working. We were too constrained. A lot of long form is narrative driven. We tried the Harold format and a couple of our members really struggled because they felt it was too constraining.
Yeah.
I don't mind it myself. We hit upon the La Ronde as something we did for a while, which we've really enjoyed.
The La Ronde is the one where...
So it's a series of two-handers. So A and B do a scene, and then B and C do a scene, and then C and D do a scene, and it goes all the way around until whoever's last, G, does a scene with A. And then we might go around twice. And the idea is you stick with the same character for both of your scenes, but we try and place them in a new place. So we see a character relating to one person, one character, and then we have a whole new scene with that character where we find another aspect of them.
Ah, right. Yeah,
But then that new person is in a new scene with somebody else. And it's called La Ronde after the Schnitzler play, where you follow a group of people all the way around in a circle.
Isn't there a venereal disease
It
involved?
is.
Yes.
They give each other VD. It's a
Yes.
series of sexual encounters. But in our version, it doesn't have to be. It's just the same format. Preferably. So we do that. That's one of our things that we keep and we like doing. And we'll go around maybe twice, occasionally 3 times, and then sometimes then do a free form where the characters meet each other in random ways. So we like that. We're doing a thing, and I'm sure Kate talked about this, we call it sort of Improv Actually, vaguely based on the Love Actually structure of 3 separate stories,
Right.
all about relationships.
Only 3 stories, because I seem to remember there being about 16 in Love Actually.
We do 3.
That's a better
So
choice.
we're following, it's almost a whole format again, because you get 3 unrelated scenes, and then we bring them back.
Right.
Not necessarily, but it's the same characters in the same relationship, although time might well have passed. And that was the only rule, apart from the last story. The 9th scene, which is the 3rd scene of the 3rd story, should have a happy ending.
Oh, that's nice.
Otherwise, you leave your audience with a sort of bit of a downer.
Yeah, you think that's important?
We felt it was just help with the energy of the show.
Yeah.
That at least the final story should end well. Otherwise, because often the relationships don't. And what was really interesting is sometimes we did it with 5 people, and so. Because we're staying with the same characters, one of the relationships would be a solo monologue that would come back 3 times, talking about a relationship.
That's interesting.
And that was fun to do.
It's nice to have that different sort of energy, because we've seen, a couple of couples and then a one-person one is, it's interesting from a variety point of view.
And the thing we're experimenting with now, we just call it, I forgot what we call it, scenes of... I've just forgot. Basically, it's a montage.
Oh, right.
So we get stories from the audience, and we do like to do this. We spend a good 5 or 6 minutes.
Yes, you did this on Wednesday.
Yes. Getting the audience talking to each other, we eavesdrop, come back on stage, anonymously say some of the things we've heard, and then weave that into scenes of consciousness, we call it.
Yes.
So, and all we're doing is letting each scene inspire the next one, or the stories inspire. So it's a sort of montagey thing where we'll use the audience stuff, we'll use what's come out of the scenes. Some scenes will come back and develop, some won't. And that tends to last about 45 minutes. So it's the most structuralist thing we do, which we like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really lovely thing. Any format where you can celebrate the audience's experiences, because if it's your experience being shared on stage, that's very exciting, and sometimes you can actually gain, a perspective and a greater understanding on it. But even if it's somebody else's experience, it has that ring of, at least to start with, of truth. So that's a really lovely format.
And you can almost hear the satisfaction when you hit one of the points.
Yeah.
It's not quite a laugh, it's not quite a sigh, but there's a sort of release of breath and energy when they go, yes, that's the worm I was talking about, or whatever.
Yes, this has come up in quite a few of the conversations I've had recently, and it's that, is it Keith Johnston, you can hear when an audience laughs, but it's harder to hear the other emotional reactions when they're on the edge of the seat or in tears or whatever. So I'm really interested in how you kind of work an audience and, interact with them. It's something I'm just interested in.
I pay very little attention to the audience. That's what works for me. I think my best moments are when I get a big laugh and I have no idea why. Those are brilliant, because it means I was being completely truthful. I was in the moment, I was in the scene, and I clearly did something that the audience appreciated, and I don't know why it is, because I wasn't trying to get a laugh,
Yes.
I wasn't trying to get a reaction,
Yes.
and I love those moments.
Yeah.
It's like, I've done something and I don't know what it is, but good.
So when you're performing with new jokes or wherever, do you like to give your scene partners gifts, or do you like to mess with them?
I think neither. I'm quite bad at great spontaneous endowments. You know, that moment where someone will come out and I don't know, you'll be having a cup of tea and then they'll say something about the wonderful painting on the wall or whatever. They'll do those specifics, and they take me a while to generate. I'm usually more interested in like what's happening emotionally between us than that who, what, where, when. Let's get it out there now. I'm not brilliant at that. I'm much better letting that come slowly. I think I quite enjoy making my scene partner suffer.
Yeah, what way?
Well, I think Cruelty can be really funny.
Yes.
So you probably saw the scene I did with Susie in the show where she said I'm a failure at everything, and I just went, okay.
Yes.
And I went, you are. You know, the plants die, you can't have children, you get sacked from every job. And everyone I did got a bigger laugh. And there's something about the willingness to go to places that the audience wouldn't go to. Because you wouldn't really ever say to your friend or your partner, you'd say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And the willingness to go to that awful place and go, yeah, you're right, you're a failure. Let me give you more examples. I enjoy that pattern, and that's something I will do. And as long as you know your scene partners know you well enough and you know them well enough, that's the game you're playing.
Yes. Yeah. No, I was going to raise that scene because that was a very funny scene, and it almost it doesn't break the rules really, but you know the rules you get when you start is that yes and be positive and agree. But what you're doing is you're being very clear with your offer, and it's very, must have been really obvious to Susie, I imagine, obvious to me watching it. Okay, so this is the game that we're playing. And, because, you're with somebody that they're not, going to take it personally.
Yes.
I mean, even if it was true.
No. Susie is a wonderful person, very successful, a wonderful mother, a great scene partner. She's a fabulous person.
Well, I presume that to be the case. Otherwise, you might have been a little bit more reticent to mention all these fictional ways in which they'd messed up. But no, that was because it was such a clear offer. It was, even though it might not be seen as sort of positive, I'm doing inverted commas here, actually, because it was so clear and the game was so fun, it was,
So I do love scenes like that. And I do love scenes of ridiculous agreement. People who are just delighted. And I think I got this partly from doing a couple of dummy workshops.
Yes.
And Jason is really hot on, getting into the boat with people, finding something you can share.
It's those two people that, thank God they've found each other, because they're the only sort of people that think that way, but,
And I love those things where you can get delighted about whatever, plum jam or Roddy McDowell films or water bottles, whatever it is, and just two people who are delighted with each other's company. I just find those such fun to do.
Yes.
Definitely.
And it's the specificity of those subjects as well can be delightful. If someone knows a lot about Dolph Lundgren films, then brilliant. I'd love to hear about it in great detail. And if someone doesn't know about Dolph Lundgren films, I want to hear these films that they're just going to make up. Either way, you can't lose in that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what can... Okay, so... in other parts of the country, sometimes the Brummie accent is used as a shorthand for and
go on, just say it.
No, I've forgotten because Nick in the last episode, which I only recorded this morning, he described it in a really good way. It was something like generous affability or something like that. I was wondering if when I came to see Birmingham based improv acts, whether I would see... I've not seen enough really to get a sort of a picture. The main difference that I saw was during the Baron Sternlook show, where we had loads of references to Birmingham in the Midlands, which was far more than I normally see in the show. I just kind of is there a Birmingham improv scene identity? I suppose is kind of what I'm getting at. And who do you do if you want to do a accent where?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So first of all, as you can hear, I'm not a native son. I'm an adopted son. I've been in Birmingham about 20-something years. So I can't speak for Birmingham. I will always be an outsider here. People will use broad Brummie accents in scenes because audiences like it and it's funny. They'll use black country accents, which is different because it's even broader and it has its own special dialect, which people inside the M25 have no idea about. I want to segue slightly, which is we realised in the knee-jerk thing we were I'm terrible at accents. That's the other thing to say. I can do two. I can do posh and I can do Cockney, and that's my limit. I can't do accents. I never have been able to. And in short form games, when I'm given accents to do, it's just hysterical because I can't do it. But other members of Knee Jerks do accents, and we realised that we were using northern accents for stupid people.
Right.
And went, that is wrong. So we then had a series of shows of northern people with PhDs.
Lovely.
Which was great. And we still do that occasionally.
Yeah,
it's like somebody will come in very, very smart, very intelligent with a northern accent. Brummie accents, less so. But certainly local references.
Yeah.
I think I want to just... Last year, Showstopper came to Birmingham. They're coming this year as well. We don't get the whole group. We can't afford them. They send 3 people and a keyboard player. And they did a show called Two Nights at the Bull Ring, which was the title they were given. And they did, given that none of them are Brummies, they did practically the whole thing in Brummie accents, really accurately. And lots of local references. They were astounding that they knew all that stuff.
Which group that you've seen, possibly that played at the festival, do you think has had the most influence on your improv?
This is going to be such a trite response. TJ and Dave.
Oh.
Obviously, we haven't had them at the Birmingham Improv Festival. I saw them twice in Chicago and once in London.
Oh, yeah.
They're astounding.
Yes.
They are... You take it to a different level. I don't know how they do half of what they do. All the characters, all the relationships, the narrative arc, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
I would like to say it's influenced my improv. I doubt if it has. It actually made me quite despondent because you just go, it's like watching a brilliant footballer and you'll go, I'm never going to get beyond Sunday Pub League. I just am not. I have to let go of all my dreams now. That's what they did for me. But yeah, I think they're the biggest inspiration. I saw Baby Wants Candy at Edinburgh Festival this year, and they inspired me in the way they took the worst possible audience suggestion I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you what it was?
Yes.
Take this tampon, you need it more than I do.
Right, okay.
And not only accepted it, but brilliantly turned it into a show about female empowerment, dealing with male rage, love, acceptance.
Yeah.
All the men played women, all the women played men. I don't know if that was something they decided beforehand or something they do, but it happened. Yeah. And I went, that is not only fabulous, because obviously the show was good, they are good, but they managed with Group Mind to take it to a whole different political level spontaneously, and that just so impressed me.
Yes. I often think that there's a certain amount of editing that you can do when you're asking for suggestions, but it is the quality of the improvisation, almost in spite of the original suggestion, that is important.
They still honoured the suggestion. They still used it because they still had a song about it.
Yeah.
That was a line in the final song.
Yeah.
But there was nothing remotely, smutty or
They played at the top of their intelligence.
They played at the top of everyone's intelligence. I was really impressed by that, and that's something I think we should all aspire to.
Yes.
I call it low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And I very quickly get tired of groups that just want to go for knob gags and use sexuality, and it's funny, it can be done, but I tire very quickly.
Yes, that's fair enough. Sort of big final question in a way.
Okay.
What would you like the future to hold for you, for improv, for Birmingham? What would you like to see more of?
For Birmingham Festival, I'll talk about that
Yeah,
first.
go for it.
I'm already in planning mode for 2018,
Brilliant.
inevitably. And what I'm trying to do, the Blue Orange is gorgeous. It's a 100-seater theatre, and the groups that come and play it love it because
Yes.
it's so much better than a grotty room above a pub.
It's a beautiful place. Yes.
But you can still only get a certain size of group on stage, and you can only afford to pay a group so much in terms of what you can recoup in ticket price.
Yeah.
So I'm now talking to some larger Birmingham venues about partnering so that we can have stuff in the Blue Orange but also in a bigger venue, and I can invite some bigger companies to come and play. So that's my ambition for next year, is to spread to more than one venue.
Brilliant.
I would like to become a half-decent improviser. I have all the self-doubts of every improviser ever. I would like to be a better improviser.
That's so reassuring though, because I think everybody feels. I presume that everybody feels that self-doubt. Maybe there are some psychotic improvisers out there that have no doubt whatsoever, but I think everyone feels that, and it is a reassuring message for other people that you're not alone feeling this way.
No, yeah. So I would like to be a half-decent improviser. I would like Knee Jerks to find its absolute unique voice. I'm also I haven't mentioned this, I'm in a really recently formed musical improv group, which I'm in because I can't sing and I'm terrified of it. So I thought I ought to.
Is that off Broadside?
It's off Broad Street. It's
Broad Street?
Off Broad Street.
Oh, I was so nearly right.
And I would like to do one scene with them where I felt I'd achieved something good and sung a song that was worthwhile.
What? Sorry, why you can't sing? You're in a musical group.
Exactly.
Surely that can't work. That's a trick question, because of course it can, but go on.
Well, you know and I know that so being able to sing is not a prerequisite. Being willing to sing is the prerequisite. Being able to sing is a fantastic super bonus.
Yes.
So groups like Showstopper and Baby Wants Candy and Notflix, who we saw last night, they're all amazing singers, and that's a fabulous bonus, but it's not an essential. I would like to be able to sing better. And in terms of improv, getting good teachers to come to Birmingham is always a hard work and a challenge. But the more we can do it, the better we can all get.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. I think that's everything.
Thank you for letting me rant on for 14
No,
minutes.
that's been very entertaining, and thank you for all the work you've done for Birmingham and the Improv Festival, because I've had a lovely time.
Great.
And I will be back next year.
Please do. We haven't talked about you at all.
Oh, that's not important.
Do you perform with the group?
Yes.
What are you called?
So I'm in a two-prov group called Dr. Two-Prov.
Right.
So Bryn and I improvise stories set in the world of Doctor Who. So it's a mixture of it's kind of scenes from a hat and the living room.
Okay.
So we play two guards in the Matrix on Gallifrey, and we watch the Doctor's adventures.
Nice.
So we got all of time and space to access. We just watch
Yeah.
Doctor Who adventures, and those Doctor Who adventures are from written suggestions. And so, we'll have a chat as these night watchmen, and then we usually have some sort of issue that we discuss, and then we'll go to the other side of the stage, we'll act out the adventure that we see. And the nice thing about that format is when you act it out, if you get a laugh and it's really good, brilliant. If it just goes a bit weird, which sometimes it does, when we come back and sit down and go, yeah, that was a bit more of a webisode than an actual episode, wasn't it? So you get to comment on the action that you've done.
Right, nice safety net.
And I'm also in the Nursery House team, The Verbs, who recently have become a musical improv group. So I've been with them for about a month now, and that's going really well, and enjoying that. And I also run a group called Night Version, which is influenced by Frank Buzz, the French lighting technician and improviser, came over for Slapdash.
Yes.
And so we have a projector, and we project images and soundscapes and use them as inspiration, which is a nightmare, but brilliant.
I saw a group in Edinburgh whose name I can't remember, but I've got it written down, who worked with
the RH experience.
The RH experience.
Yeah, they draw.
With the sketches on it. Yeah, I loved that. I thought it was really lovely.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I love tech. It's a nightmare. Every time I do the show, something goes wrong. Yeah. About half an hour before, and I've just got a bag full of every different type of cable you could ever imagine. But It's
So,
worth it.
well, I need to come down and watch you guys because so far it might change. So far, the rule for the festival has been nothing's in that I or somebody closely related that I trust hasn't seen gets in. We don't accept applications from people we don't know, which is a bit. So I need to come down to the nursery and watch a load more shows so that we can invite you up. And if we don't invite you up, it means we didn't think you were good enough.
Well, as long as I know where I am in the standing, that's fine. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Cool.
Thank you. Cheers.
I made this.
That's improv!